My name is Amara, and I was 22 years old the night I became a wife. Looking back now, I realize that my wedding night taught me more about love, trust, and patience than anything I had experienced before. It wasn't a dramatic story filled with grand romantic gestures or instant passion. Instead, it was a quiet beginning that slowly grew into something beautiful. It showed me that real love is not measured by how quickly two people become close, but by how deeply they learn to respect one another. Mine was an arranged marriage, the kind my grandmother always described as a meeting of families before it becomes a meeting of hearts. Growing up, I had heard countless stories of couples who barely knew each other before marriage, but eventually built happy lives together. I always wondered if that could really happen. Could affection truly grow between strangers? Could trust be built instead of instantly felt? Before our wedding, I met my husband, Idris, only 3 times. The first meeting was a formal introduction over tea, where our parents carried most of the conversation while we answered polite questions with nervous smiles. The second was during a family dinner, where he quietly noticed I couldn't reach the rice bowl and passed it to me before I even asked. He looked slightly embarrassed afterward, as if kindness came naturally to him but attention did not. The third time was during the henna ceremony. My cousins watched us from across the room, whispering and laughing as we exchanged only a few awkward words. Idris was 28, an engineer, and naturally reserved. He wasn't the kind of person who dominated conversations or tried to impress everyone around him. Instead, he listened carefully and spoke thoughtfully. There was something calming about him, though at the time I barely knew enough to recognize it. I didn't exactly choose him, but I didn't reject the proposal either. When my mother asked if I felt ready, I said yes, because I trusted her wisdom more than my own uncertainty. What I didn't realize then was that agreeing to marry someone and feeling emotionally prepared for marriage were two completely different things. The wedding itself was everything people dream of: bright lights, colorful decorations, joyful music, endless laughter, and relatives filling every corner of the house. My mother cried happy tears throughout the day, while my grandmother kept reminding everyone how beautiful the ceremony had been. Surrounded by so much celebration, it almost felt impossible to think about what would happen after everyone went home. But eventually the guests left. The music stopped. The laughter faded into silence. Suddenly, I found myself sitting alone on the edge of our bedroom, still wearing my wedding clothes, my hands folded tightly in my lap. For the first time that day, there was nothing distracting me from the reality that I had just married someone I barely knew. I wasn't frightened of Idris himself. I was frightened of the unknown. I didn't know what he expected from me or what married life would truly be like. My heartbeat seemed louder than the silence around me. After some time, Idris entered the room. He had changed out of his embroidered sherwani and into a simple kurta. Somehow, seeing him dressed so ordinarily made him seem less like a groom and more like a regular person. Instead of sitting beside me on the bed, he quietly pulled the only chair in the room several feet away and sat there with his hands resting comfortably on his knees. "You don't have to say anything tonight," he said softly. "I just didn't want you to feel alone." I wanted to respond, but my throat was too tight with emotion. I simply nodded. He didn't pressure me to speak or fill the silence with unnecessary conversation. Instead, he allowed the quiet to exist naturally between us. After several minutes, he smiled gently. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight," he said. "There's no rush, not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever until you're comfortable." There was no disappointment in his voice, no expectation, no resentment. Only patience. He placed a neatly folded blanket on the chair before leaving the room and gently closed the door behind him. That simple act of consideration stayed with me long after I lay down to sleep. I remained awake for hours, not because I was afraid anymore, but because I found myself wondering about the man sleeping in the next room. Who was he beneath his quiet personality? Why had he been so understanding? The following morning, I found a cup of hot tea waiting outside my door. Beneath it was a handwritten note: "Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here, no hurry." Idris, I read the note twice before smiling for the first time since the wedding. That first week of marriage wasn't filled with extraordinary moments. Instead, it consisted of countless small acts of kindness that slowly built trust between us. He never forced conversations. He never demanded affection. He simply gave me space while reminding me that he was always available whenever I needed him. On the third evening, I surprised myself by knocking on his study door. "Would you like to talk?" I asked. His smile answered before his words did. We spent hours sitting on the floor of the living room with cups of tea, sharing small details about ourselves. We spoke about our favorite childhood memories, books we loved, places we dreamed of visiting, and funny habits we had never told anyone else. I learned he preferred strong coffee, enjoyed fixing broken household items, and secretly worried about every stray cat he saw outside. Eventually, I gathered enough courage to ask the question that had been on my mind. "Why aren't you in a hurry?" He thought carefully before answering. "Because I'd rather know you first," he replied. "Everything else can wait. It'll mean more when it happens naturally." His answer changed something inside me. Over the next several weeks, our relationship unfolded slowly. We began taking evening walks along the nearby canal. He tried teaching me the names of constellations, but often mixed them up, giving me endless opportunities to tease him. He discovered that I preferred sleeping with the window slightly open, even during winter. I learned that whenever he bought a new book, he secretly read the final page first because he couldn't bear sad endings. Little by little, we became comfortable around each other. Conversations grew longer. Laughter came easier. The physical distance between us gradually disappeared without either of us noticing. One evening, while we sat watching the sunset, he quietly held out his hand. He didn't grab mine. He simply offered it. The choice remained entirely mine. When I placed my hand in his, he smiled with the same quiet warmth he had shown on our wedding night. "You don't have to love me yet," he said, "but I'd like the chance to earn it." And somehow, without realizing it, he already had. A month later, I rested my head on his shoulder without hesitation. His forehead kisses no longer felt unfamiliar, they felt comforting. Every shared conversation, every respectful gesture, every patient moment became another brick in the foundation of our marriage. When we eventually became husband and wife in every sense of the word, it wasn't because of a single unforgettable night. It happened because weeks of trust had quietly replaced uncertainty. We had taken the time to build something meaningful before asking anything more from one another. Today, more than a year into our marriage, people sometimes ask if I ever regretted agreeing to an arranged marriage. I always smile before answering because I didn't fall in love overnight. I fell in love with patience. I fell in love with respect. I fell in love with someone who understood that trust cannot be demanded, it must be. And if I could share one lesson with every woman preparing for marriage, it would be this: genuine love never fears waiting. A person who truly cares about you will never rush your comfort, your trust, or your heart. Love that respects your pace isn't love holding itself back. It's love that already knows the strongest relationships are built slowly, honestly, and with unwavering patience. And looking back now, I realized that my wedding night wasn't the beginning of fear at all. It was the quiet beginning of a love story worth waiting for.